Taking a second.
What's up, everybody? It's Tyler and Matt. Welcome back to
What up,
another live
guys?
stream on Hook Sets Are Free. It's about 9:15 p.m. here on Friday night, June the 10th. So Matt hit me up and said that he was free and had his own unboxing of sorts to do. And just so happens that I've got 3 packages that have made their way here since last week. And so between tonight and tomorrow, I will open up the full contents of these 3 packages. Um, but tonight, maybe we'll just try to, generally speaking, keep things somewhat JDM. I've got some Japanese stuff in here, so maybe I'll just kind of rifle through and pick and choose some things that are in these packages, even though I haven't opened them yet. So, yeah, let's just catch up with everybody real quick. Talk about this week's worth of fishing. We got Frank, Daniel, Mark, all in the house. Abe, what's going on, guys?
The
Adam.
what up, guys? How you guys doing? Pretty much talked to like half of these guys anyway.
Yeah, so I can't remember when was the last time that we were on. Just
Well,
this past weekend.
it was last weekend, I think, or yeah,
Okay.
should be.
Yeah, so I haven't done a ton of fishing since then. I think I've been out once or twice. Just caught a couple on that same Finesse football jig with the Bellows Guild trailer, just
Yeah,
working for me. Um, Especially when I see cruising fish up shallow, and then I had to resort to catching smaller fish on a drop shot and a chunk of mac scent one time that I was just super rushed. So honestly, I did not go with anything other than that tiny little rig there, just trying to pluck a couple panfish out. But I haven't done a lot of fishing in the last few days, so I don't have a ton of updates for you guys, but Matt might. Have you done much fishing yet this week? And
yeah. Hold on
let's
one
just
second.
kind
I
of
was trying to fix it.
parlay that into the question that is, what have you been trying out recently? What kind of
Yeah.
comments do you have for us in the way of first impressions or what's been working well, things like that?
Well, this week I've had a pretty good week this week. I've been using a lot of pretty much a swim jig, the Matsuraba as usual. Also, I've caught a couple on the Beeble spinner, that new spinner from Bottom Up, and
Okay.
but I ended up losing it, which kind of sucked.
Wow,
I
that does suck.
did catch a good high 3 on it, and pretty much on the first cast, and it was pretty interesting. And it what I didn't like though was that off of that just that one fish, that it was kind of bent up pretty bad, and I noticed that on the spinner it has a little tiny bead on it, metal bead on it before that little tiny I guess you can say blade on the front, and to keep it, I guess, from moving back further. But when I noticed is that after I had set the hook and got it in the fish, that bead actually somewhat forced its way through that hole anyway,
Oh,
and kind
geez.
of like got it stuck. And so I was like, oh man, that's not good. But but like I said, it was an interesting spinnerbait, and I noticed that it was, you had to reel it pretty fast. I think it was more of a slow rolling spinnerbait, and but in my opinion it was pretty good going fast, because you could go fast and it wouldn't come up too quickly, it would actually stay down. And that's one thing I liked about it, and that's what I was doing. It was the tide was so low, it was probably like 2 feet of water at max in certain spots, and maybe a foot in some other split places. And I was just went through it and just started burning, because I saw tons of minnows and little tiny white perch popping everywhere, and I just started burning it. And literally, that's when I got that high 3 that I had, and then the rest were on wake baits. I caught one off the Timber Tiger, that Aaron Martin's Epic Eric tribute crank, the one that he had did with TK.
Yeah.
Caught one off that one. Also, that Griffin Zero was producing pretty well. Caught a bunch of little white perch on that, but I didn't really count those as catches really.
On what bait?
The Griffin Zero
Yeah.
on that respect color, the GG Haas shad, that chartreuse.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It was a pretty good color too, and I think I caught one little tiny bass on it, but it wasn't that big. So and then also I tested out which is one of the baits I guess I could show pretty much now. But it was this the Rooms Hellcat.
Yeah.
Get a little
It's
closer.
such a weird body shape.
And so, but this bait here, it is nuts, man. I was pretty surprised on it. I thought it was going to be just weird, and it has the craziest like crank swim I've ever seen, and it just like wobbles really wide. It's almost similar to like the head and big bud in a way. And then as it's going and wobbling extremely wide, and it pauses it, it literally goes like this, wobbles up like that on the pause. So it's like a weird like injured fish look, but you would not think the swim it would have, with the look that it has, that it would actually work that way, but it does. And it goes pretty deep, but not too deep as you would think. And it's very buoyant. Like it literally floats up pretty quickly. And I think that's what gives it that sort of like wobble, is that the shape and as well as the high buoyancy in it. So, but it's a very interesting bait.
It definitely looks like an old school bait. You
Yeah.
mentioned a head in, and I wouldn't necessarily just say head in, but yeah, it definitely looks like a lure from, I don't know, a couple generations ago.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's
from
ball
that
size, so
perspective, it almost looks like a hybrid between old and new with all that wild shaping. But when you showed it from just like the top, um, definitely looks. Wow, yeah, that's pretty weird.
it's got like an eel sort of head mixed with like a
Yeah,
minnow. And
right.
it kind of has that similar look. It's like almost like an eel mixed with like a minnow, and it wobbles, but it almost has like a snaky whine to it. It's very interesting. I got to record it. That's what I wanted to do with it, but I got to figure out how I'm gonna do it. But I think I'm just gonna get my phone holder thing and just hold it while I just pull the rod. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's a pretty cool bait, and I would definitely want to see how it does. In certain areas, because like I said, it does go a little bit deep, but not too deep. And certain spots that I usually would probably use that have been having a lot of that mossy grass stuff, and it's kind of
Right.
been rough, so can't really use it that much there.
Yeah, I didn't mention that on Monday I went fishing to a spot that I really only ever get to go to a couple times a year. It's part of this like wildlife refuge, and they charge $3 a day to go there. Um, but when I'm only going there a handful of times per year, uh, it's worth it, especially at $3 a day. And I usually catch pretty decent fish there, but
Yeah.
that day just had a string of bad luck. Uh, pike after pike just bit me clean off with a mag draft and a fire craw jackhammer. And then I also lost a dark sleeper and high end crankbait. I forget what I was using, but yeah, that all added up pretty quickly. Uh, probably lost 75 or $80 worth of lures that day and did not land a fish. I had one that was so close to the bank, and
Yeah.
I was just kind of freaking out about how to properly handle it. And so luckily, as I was trying to like flip it, it flopped off the hook. Um, but yeah, I didn't think it would be
I
like
had that happen a
hook
lot.
only. I was expecting to see some bedding bass and have some opportunities to snipe them. Meanwhile, they were nowhere to be found, and the only thing that was eating or chasing were the pike there. So that was pretty annoying. But happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and then also, I also had, a couple bites as well this week on this bait. The one I showed you a little bit earlier, but this
Yeah.
I had, the one day, like I said, I had caught, damn it, and but wish it would focus better, but oh well. Oh well, but like I said, I had pretty much, use this at a certain specific time when I was fishing. It was really at like when the tide was starting to come in at a certain point at this one area that I was fishing at. And I really had to wait on that because where the area that I'm fishing at, it has a lot of this, like I said, moss, dead grass, moss stuff that gets clumped up all over. And it's really hard to use a crankbait or anything that grabs any sort of, or has any sort of lip on it. And so when the tide comes in, this area that usually used to be open is now dammed. So the current is not strong there anymore. So it depends on when the current comes in, not going out anymore. Usually when it was going out, it would suck all that clumps of weeds out and, pretty much clean it naturally. But now it doesn't do that. So it pretty much just clumps up and just pretty much continuously gets like that. And what was weird is that too, a beaver, it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life, is that a beaver was grabbing that stuff and taking it out of the water and putting it on the edge of the bank. And I was like, what the hell is going on here?
I don't know, but he's helping you out.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, I've never seen that before. And I was like, what the hell? And I thought he was eating it. And literally, he just grabbed a bunch of it, clumped it up in his mouth, and just brung it onto the shore and was doing that for like multiple times. And I was lost. And I was like, what the hell? And but like I said, that spot there gets like that. And so I wait on the tide so that it pushes that stuff away from the bank. And then I can run this pretty much along the bank parallel. And that allows me to then use it like that. And that's what I was doing in near that current. And every time where that current was, which is where those bass were hiding, waiting for like minnows to come by and pretty much eat them. And sometimes the bluegill would stand there too and eat the little tiny minnows as well. And then the bass would eat the bluegill. Right. So, and this looks like a bluegill in a way, with the golden, pretty much green look. And in the water, since my water's kind of like murky and somewhat like a tannic look, it kind of looks like that with that gold flash as it's like going by. Because I'll actually twitch it just like the tiny clash, and it'll just walk like this. And I do that same thing, and it pretty much, that's what was getting me the bites. I would just do that right as long I was going by them. I knew where they were at, and they would just come up and hit it. And that's where it was getting from the head, hits that I was getting.
Interesting. So do you think that's a retrieve that bait is made to do, or something that you've just learned from fishing the clash baits? Probably transfers over to using.
I just pretty much, it's something I got from the tiny clash, and I noticed that you can do it with a bunch of different baits if you just really just apply it to it, and if as long as it has that sort of like balance to where it can do that, and a lip, you can pretty much do that, because you can do that with almost all crankdowns that I know of. And also you can do it with rat baits, which is what a lot of guys do with the rat baits. They don't even use them as wake baits. They just walk the rat pretty much on surface, and it walks in place, and the tail just goes nuts. And that's what I do too, is just crank it down and then pretty much let it come back up to the surface, and then I'll just twitch it a couple times, like it's almost like trying to drown, and then you just start reeling it again, and it'll start swimming back down. And that's how I've got most of my rat bites, like that too. So
interesting. Yeah, so Daniel's got an unfortunate story. Says he learned this week that hook sets aren't always free. He had a bad hook set, and his crankbait flew through the air and busted the bill of the side of the boat.
Wow.
Well, that sucks, Daniel. Sorry to hear it.
That almost happened
with a good Lucky Craft BDS 3. Okay.
Yeah, that almost happened with this damn bait. I literally went and set the hook, and the damn bill hit the rocks. Yeah. And I almost got scared, man. I was like, oh no. I thought I like broke it, or like it messed it. It kind of not stress fractured, but it kind of put like a right there on the corner on the other side right there. it kind of put this like stress kind of like mark on it to where it kind of, I guess, got enough force on it, but it didn't mess it up in any way. So, but he also sells replacement lips, so just in case. So that's a good thing. But he's going to start selling to the US, which is pretty cool. And
Nice.
he's going to make a US website so you can buy from him. And I'm definitely going to buy another one because, like I said, this bait here is very well made. And for the price, it's really not bad. You know, they're almost the same price as a resin bait and for its size. And I think it takes a lot longer to make. And for, like I said, the swim on this is pretty much like a crankbait. Literally, it's like a multi-jointed crankbait.
What'd you pay for that?
This one's $130.
Okay.
And it's made out of that Japanese wood cedar that they make, pretty much like the Roman baits are made out of.
Yeah.
And the clear coat is extremely strong. Like I said, I've hit this multiple times on rocks, and like the only damage it has is like a couple specks of, you know, small little, not chips, but like scratches. It's not actually like,
yeah,
it's not shearing off or nothing like that. So it's very strong.
By the way, a bait that I've been fishing a lot for the last week, and have still tied on to my crankbait setup, has been the 6 cents Finesse curve square bill. You can see it's a super small lip and this super fat body. This is the same body as what you get in a curve 55. You know, they're like wigglewort style bait, but instead they've put a square bill on it that is shallow and narrow. And you'd be surprised how this thing has a fairly consistent action on it unless you really go wild in burning it or popping your rod. And not just that, but it runs like a foot to 2 feet deep, and almost immediately is going to jump a handful of baits in that category of like super shallow diving crankbaits that I'm really still trying to hone in, because I think most people would associate shallow diving crankbaits and immediately go to a 3 to 5 foot diver, and I would not consider that the same. Even, you know, finesse curve or a finesse square bill like this, or like the Lucky Craft 1.0, or maybe they call it the 0.7, the Strike King 1.0. These guys still dive 2 to 4 feet. So something in that like 1 to 3 foot zone is kind of what I'm looking to find. And just wondering if this package from Midway USA has anything that is worthy of talking about right this minute. There's a couple of things. And the first, I wanted to bring. So this is a Magnum square bill from 6 cents. It's called the Cloud 9 Magnum square bill 9.8. This is a 104 millimeters and an ounce and a half. It's a square bill that dives 5 to 10 feet. So this thing was like $6, and I couldn't help myself but buy it. I can't remember if the other one of these that I have is their Magnum square bill or if it's their mini mag, but they're giant baits. And, you know, this color called Tiger Gill was cool enough, and the price was right on it. So 5 to 10 foot diver, but if you pull a mat and, you know, you size up your line, really, if you go up to 20-pound fluorocarbon on something like this, it'll probably dive no more than 5 feet.
Yeah, about 5.
And if you're making shorter casts, you'll probably manage, you know, the depth on that. Could probably keep it somewhere in that like 3 to 5 foot zone.
I bet that'd be a good river bait.
So yeah, I've got one of these in like a shad pattern, and thought it could be fun to have one in a bluegill pattern as well, because, you know, there's not a lot of full-size crankbaits that are essentially like a realistic size of a bluegill or a perch or anything like that. You know, they're all 1.5, 2.5. Like this thing is essentially like the striking 8.0, you know, an ounce and a half. This thing's got to be thrown on like light swim bait stuff. You know what I mean? Something that's got some tip, but you're not going to be able to throw that on like 90% of setups.
Yeah.
So,
Like a 795 probably do good on it.
right, exactly. And I do have a medium heavy,
or like a deep cranking rod.
yeah, medium heavy moderate. I've used it for chatterbaits and things like that. It'll handle baits up to like an ounce and a half. So could use that there, but more likely it's for like swim bait setup. So I also got a couple of Jackal crankbaits that just happen to be a really good deal on Midway USA. These are baits that for no particular reason I just haven't owned up until now. And you know, this first one is highly regarded in the like
I think I know what it is.
mid diving depth range. This is the MC60.
No, that's not it. That's not the one I was thinking.
So this is like a you know, 6 to 8 foot diver. They say it dives 7 feet, but this is very much in that same category as like a wiggle wart. And so
interesting. I never seen them.
the MC60 MR is the standard one in that line and has been a productive bait for a number of years. So since I like a DT6 and have ventured into a number of other baits kind of in that same category, these were on sale for like $7 and they retail for $15. So couldn't help but pick a couple of those guys up. That first one is just a, you know, blueback chartreuse. Pretty straightforward. They didn't have like the best color selection available at the discounted prices. So some are like exactly what I wanted and some not as much. But this is a cool one of these HD colors like we've been talking about recently. They call it RT Chartreuse Shad.
Yeah, I like that, you know, real image look. It's pretty cool.
So yeah, I'm not sure if it's
Amakatsu's good with that.
If it's painted or printed or what. You would think it's some type of printed foil that they are able to put on there because, I mean, it's almost too good to be painted on there. But
yeah, it's nice.
It's some type of foil. It says, you know, MC60 MR on the bottom, has this kind of silvery finish, and yeah, it's beautiful. So I ended up getting 2 of those MC60 MRs and 2 of these MC60 SRs. So they make a shallow runner. This is a newer bait to the series. I want to say they came out with it like a year and a half ago, and this thing dives to maximum 4 feet. So it's a 2 to 4 foot diver, and this is really the one that I was most excited about and was going to pick up a handful of, but unfortunately, last minute before pulling the trigger, they changed the prices on some of those. So this color is dark craw, and I kind of dig that.
Yeah, it's nice.
So we got Rich in the house. Nice. Shannon Kirby, what's up? So yeah, I like when crawfish style baits either don't put an eye here or just black it out like they did here. You know, I understand that a lot of blanks are just gonna have the eye, but to have a craw pattern painted on there and then have 3D eyes, to me, is just kind of weird. But this is a cool color pattern, a little bit darker than most
put eyes on
think of, and I like that. And then I got that same color, the RT Chartreuse Shad, in the shallower diving SR, the shallow runner. And so it's that same deal. And the rattle on this guy is also muted, but maybe kind of the same. So it's like they've got a ball stuck in there. I'm sure it's more of just a balancer than a rattle itself, but does a good job at having a faint knock. So yeah, these guys retail at $15 a pop. I've been curious about them for a while and was able to pick up, 4 of them for $35 or whatever, a little bit less than that. So
it's not bad.
Yeah. Kind of hard not to at least check them out. But yeah, those are a handful of crankbaits that are worth mentioning right now. I really am curious to see how this guy does, because it's a 2 to 4 foot diver, and you can see that bill is not perfectly square. It's a lot more noticeable, obviously, on the mid runner, because this is meant to do slightly different things. Going to be more of a rock crawler hunter style bait, whereas this guy, you might still do the same thing, just up on riprap, but you might be plowing wood and other things with this, and with that slightly rounded edge there, might make it a little bit more friendly to fishing around grass. So we'll see. Slightly unique shape of that bill, but that's also part of what caught my eye about that. Why don't I take a break and you jump in, and we'll just kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, and that it also might be good, like I said, on a shallow water rock, and because the Z1 crank has sort of like a similar build on that shallow runner. There, so it has like that rounded sort of like bill on the edge on the corners, and it kind of has like that U shape.
Yeah, I mean it's not like the first thing that my brain wanted to go to was the BDS series from Lucky Craft, but that's a different, totally like straight and then round. It's a completely different category when it comes to
out and then a
bill shape. But yeah, this one kind of flares out, and it has some, like, I don't know how well you could see that, but the way that it comes out and then wraps down, it doesn't just have a straight line at all. And I don't know how much of a difference that kind of thing makes or can make, but they've also got a little bit of the bill is like stamped in so that the oval split ring can kind of just set in there. I kind of like when baits are designed that way. But regardless, seems like a well-made bait, and worth it for that price. But was always just kind of like one that I was curious about, so kind of motivated the purchase, and is what steered a lot of that package, as well as the stuff from River to Sea that I'll be opening tomorrow night, most likely.
All right. Well, I also got one product too that I wanted to try from the Hookup Tackle, and this pretty much is the it's not really an actual bait, it's an accessory sort of, but it's the Valley Hill bone joint, and this pretty much
joint.
Yeah.
What do you do with it?
And so that's what I'll explain. Pretty much, it's where you can take a fluke or a fluke bait. Usually this size here is for a larger size, but you can take a fluke bait and cut it in half, and then you take the actual. Let me take it out and I'll show you. So you'll take the pretty much fluke, cut that in half, and then you take one side of the fluke and put it on through that one side, and then you take the other side of the fluke and put on this side, and then you'll end up having a pretty much glide fluke where it'll glide side to side and have this weird like twitching action. And so that allows you to get just a little bit of a different action on your flukes. Then
Wait, so when you put it in there, what does it do to the shape of the fluke?
it just goes right through. It's like a needle, and it pretty much just hooks in.
But why use it?
Huh?
But why use that?
It's pretty much to give, like I said, the fluke a totally different action. It's pretty much like to give the bait the same pretty much action that what is that bait from Jackal?
Yeah, the bounty fish.
Yeah, and pretty much you just doing that with a regular plastic fluke. Instead
Wait,
of
so do you actually cut the fluke in 2 pieces or no?
yeah, you would have to cut it in 2 pieces.
Oh, so you turn a soft plastic jerkbait into a walking bait, essentially.
Yeah, like a walking glide bait or pretty much like a walking fluke.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I noticed that you're gonna have to like when you get them, if you want more and more action, you continuously bend them back and forth for a
Kind of like
little,
loosen it up.
and
Yeah.
a little bit more action to that. So it seems like a pretty cool little product. So that's why I only got like one pack to see how it works out and test it out. But it looks like it's pretty interesting, and it seems like it will hold the bait pretty hard. Like it has some pretty aggressive barbs on it.
Yeah.
And
Well, I know you probably only have Sakamata shads on you. Do you have any flukes or anything you could do a
I mean that's what it's meant for.
demonstration with?
Shad, really.
What?
And that's what it's meant for, really, is the Sakamata shad specifically.
Well, I don't want to make you sacrifice one, but there's multiple people in here that kind of want a demonstration. That would look cool.
Let me get one of my. I'll do.
Adam, what's up? Yeah, Adam says, can't picture it. Got a fluke, Matt?
So, hold on. I already messed with one of these, so hold on. Let me get different pack. All right. So, let me see. Let me take this out.
So what are you whipping out?
The Sakamata shad.
All right.
That's an 8-inch one.
Good Lord.
Let me make sure this is the one I had. So, yeah.
So are you going to cut it or do you insert that thing first? How do you?
Nah, you gotta cut it first.
Are you going to cut it like it's jointed or how are you just
cut it like in half? Like pretty much you're gonna turn it into like a glide bait.
I know, but then are you going to trim the joints or are you going to?
No. You just pretty much leave it as is.
Okay.
I just gotta figure out what's the half part on the bait. So right about there. You want to give enough room for like a good hook. Damn, that's pretty tough.
Well, maybe I'll just show a couple more things from this pack.
Yeah, take a minute.
While you're working on it. And while we've got Rich in here for a second, because this is just kind of a coincidence from a couple weeks back, I unboxed the Bullywah frog, and I remember both Rich and JP were saying, "Oh shoot, maybe I ought to take a second look at that frog, especially that red color." And I happened to notice while I was peeking around at Midway USA that they had some River to Sea stuff discounted. And I've mentioned multiple times, but River to Sea is a company that does not do discounted pricing with any retailers. You know, they have minimum advertised pricing, so everywhere is required to charge the same amount of money. And I don't know what it was. If let's say, you know, it was the holiday sale or or what, but you couldn't use the discount on River to Sea stuff at Tackle Warehouse, and somehow these frogs were heavily discounted from Midway USA. So I got one more of the small size, the Bullywah 2 in the 55. Again, this is 2¼ inches at 55 millimeters. It's a small frog, and this is a little bit more traditional of a color, at least in my eyes, because it's primarily got a black belly, but it does have that yellow head, you know, and it might even be called, yeah, the color is called yellow head, but this is the 55 size frog. Again, they make these skirts like, you know, an inch too long or more. This body is also super soft. Not quite as soft as the other two that I already picked up, but this guy was like $6. And it's an $11 frog, which is, in my opinion, fine. Little bit pricey, but not overly so. And then they had a couple colors of the larger 65 size that I wanted to check out as well. Because as I suspected, these frogs that are the only two sizes in the line really kind of cover the medium small side of the spectrum and then the medium large size of the spectrum, but not like a true mid-sized frog. So this 65, as I suspected, is kind of a big frog. Now, it's good looking, and it's got a big, soft body. Again, that weight is reinforced on the belly. This color is not perhaps one of my favorite colors, but for the price at, you know, $7, maybe even $6. I don't know what these were. They were really cheap. This color called Ghost is fine with me. And let's pause before I show you the other frog to see Matt's little creation. Only took about 8 minutes to rig up, but damn,
it was not easy.
That looks good, dude. Wow.
So pretty much you'll have that, like I said, segmented pretty much joint.
Right. So you got that separation. Did you cut any off, or did you literally you insert one side into the front half of the bait and you insert the rest into the tail, and then you get it kind of as close as you want it to be?
Yeah, I had to pretty much cut it. I cut it in half with an X-Acto knife, and then pretty much ended up just having to shove one into one of the barbs on the one side end, and then pretty much use like a small like pliers and hold the middle, and then just stab it into the other part, because it was kind of hard to do with like your hands, because it's not enough space to like put your hand in between, especially if you have big hands. So it's kind of hard. So using like a little bit of like a little pliers and pushing that barb in helps a little bit more. But like I said, and then also when you pretty much glide, it'll cause the bait to like go one way sometimes.
Yeah.
Instead of going the other way, and it'll just end up doing like a very erratic sort of swim. But
interesting.
It's just
so that's like a homemade bounty fish right there.
Pretty much, yeah. But it's pretty interesting.
Now that thing's you're gonna have to walk that thing fast, because isn't the Sakamata shad known for being a like a fast sink type of food?
Well, you can get two different types. This one is the regular Sakamata shad, which is just it's a pretty decent weight, but in 8-inch size. And then you have the 8-inch one in the heavyweight, which is a heavy salted one, and that one sinks a little faster.
I see.
So but it's not too bad. But it's pretty interesting. So I'll definitely like to see how it works.
Adam says if you nail weight the belly, will it glide? I think it would glide no matter. But
yeah, it's supposed to glide on its like own pretty much. So, but it will have like a really like I said, it will sometimes glide to one side and it'll just keep going like that, or it will go the other way. It just depends.
So what was the name of that accessory again?
It's called the bone joint from Valley Hill.
And what's that material? Is that plastic or what?
Yeah, it's like a really, really durable plastic. It's very thin,
Okay.
but it seems to be pretty damn strong. I don't know what the hell it's made out of, but
Interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting. But like I said, it seems to be a lot better when it gets on the bait. It moves a little bit better.
Yeah.
It has more weight. So
No, I mean that looks super solid.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then, like I said, as long as you give enough room to where you can hook like a decent sized hook on the front, you're good.
Right.
And then even you can maybe nose hook it too if you wanted to do that, and probably even get more crazier action. So
Yeah, Daniel makes a decent point. Wonder how that tail would hold up to a short strike. But, that technically that's true of most baits. But, oh, Matt's going to. All right, that's enough. That's. Stop it, please.
it's pretty actually strong. You like the front one, it's still not even completely in because, like I said, you got to actually like really put it in there. It's kind of hard to.
All right, so this is the last color. It's called Snipe. This is as black as a frog gets. So, just side by side, you can see that the 65 is quite a bit bigger than the 55.
There we go.
The 65 is kind of a big frog, and the 55 is a small frog.
There we go.
I slightly prefer this 55, and we'll probably use it that much more. But both frogs seem to be really well made, and we'll definitely get some time being used for me this season. So decided to take advantage of finding those on sale as well. Picked up a few. So anyway.
But yeah, and so then the second bait, well, the two other baits I got were pretty much the Whiplash Factory. This one is the, like I said, spit and wire, and this one's a pretty interesting bait. I have not used this one. I did use the other one, which is the walking wire. No, it's not this one. It's the...
Hold on, real quick. Both G-Fon and Adam were wondering, are you going to rig that with an EWG or are you going to line through it?
No, I'll rig that with the EWG.
Yeah.
Yeah, most likely. Just a shorter, pretty much hook since I had to cut it in half. So, because usually, like I said, on those Sakamana shads, the big ones, the 8-inch ones, you can rig like a huge hook on them. So
John says that Valley Hill even makes tubing to make line through swim baits.
Yeah.
While also using the bone joint thing. So, it's certainly like a reasonable thing to think that you might rig something like that line through. But yeah, I think EWG is probably a slightly more common way of using it, especially if you're going to be fishing it anywhere near where you would use a frog or along, lines like that. So,
yeah, I like to use more line throughs on like paddle tail swim baits.
Yeah. So. Fish in the Southeast, what's up?
I think that's actually that Valley Hill inline swim like pretty much tube. I think would be actually a good addition to the Power Wiggler, the 5-inch one that's meant to actually be inline, because I think that one is a little bit better since it's a little bit smaller, and it probably won't split the plastic as much as the one that comes with the Berkeley bait. So
got it. Interesting. So you think really the Power Wiggler is either a line through swim bait or a swim jig trailer?
Yeah, well, the 5-inch one, it comes with that accessory to allow that. So that one is mainly for that. It was designed to be an inline or pretty much a regular standalone swim bait with just a regular EWG. And then the 4 and 3-inch size were meant to be a swim jig trailer, and those are pretty good as well. But I pretty much used the 3 and 4 inch, 3.5 and 4 inch one, and the 4 inch one is a heavy bait. So even for its size, it's like 21 grams. So it's like like I said, like 3/4 of an ounce,
Mm-hmm.
and that's just a 4 inch bait. So you can cast that pretty far with a 1/4 ounce, swim jig, and it gets out there far.
For
So
sure.
that's the benefits of that bait too, is the 4 inch size. You can cast it really far. But this one here is, like I said, that Whiplash factory. This that spitting wire, and this is pretty much a popping sort of walking bait. It has a very small lip on it, so it's not really meant to really go and make a giant splash, but it has supposed to kick out the splash, so it wants to pretty much create that outwards splash that goes out. And it's not really meant to do a wild walk either, and it's a pretty unique bait, but it has a nice sound to it. It has small glass BBs on the head. Damn, the hooks are so sharp, it's stuck to my hand. And so, but the head has these small BBs in it, and then the middle has a small chamber in the middle, that little ball. So it's really just one ball and then like 3 small glass BBs. But then also this is the other one, which is the like I said, I think this is the driving wire, and this is the walking bait version. And the true walking bait is not a popper in sort of say, but the way that this pretty much sits in the water sits a little bit elevated, so it pretty much angled like that, and the head just sits out of the water pretty much right there. And so whenever the bass in the way that the hook position is on the bait, it allows the bait to get easier hook, pretty much a better hook up on it. So you won't have to worry about having those 3 hooks on it. And the bite on this is pretty close, since the hooks are pretty big. So it's not that small. I mean, that big, the bite gap. So you should, in theory, get pretty much a better hookup on that, which is just using 2 hooks. But I like I said, I've used it this week, and only got little bites on it by like little white perch, no bass. So, but it walks pretty nice, and it has like a little sort of like a lunker punker sort of swim, but a little bit shorter of a distance, not as wide. And
Sure.
but it's pretty much in somewhat similar to the Dog X, but it has just a little bit more of it, like I said, different finishes that you don't get with those other baits. And also, like I said, it has a different sound. So
Are those saltwater hooks on it?
they're like, yeah, sort of like saltwater hooks, but they're pretty much just like heavy gauge hooks.
Yeah.
But they're pretty big for the size, like I said, on both of them. Really, in theory, they're pretty big for the bait. So, but this one is a good size, and it's a nice color, so I think it'll get bit.
Nice.
I should have used that one, because I thought it was more closer to the size of the bait they were eating, and I didn't do that. But
Is that the same bait, or is that a different lure?
no, they're 2 different lures. This is the spitting wire, and this is the driving wire. This is the walking bait, and this is a popping sort of walking bait. It pretty much has both. So it has that small cup lip. So
Yeah.
that will spit out water, but it has an angle towards it, so it wants to spit the water upwards and pretty much make that little wide splash without having that big lip. So you won't get that bloop bloop bloop, but you'll get that, enough where it splashes that water up, and you get that, mimic of a school of fish, which
Right.
I think is really the more important part, really, in my opinion, because that, mimics that ball of fish or bait fish trying to get to the top, where fish are pushing them to the top of the surface. And I think that, triggers a response in the other fish and causes them to bite. So
Fair.
they're pretty nice baits, and like I said, they come with good hardware on them, and they're from Valley Hill, really, and because that's who makes this. That's what it says on the bottom, and so it's really Valley Hill, and so it's just like a sub brand of pretty much them. So they make pretty much good stuff that I've messed with. I like the little devil jig and a couple other stuff that they make. So it'd be cool to test them out. some more.
Yeah, I hear you. Adam asks, what do you think about feather trebles on walking baits?
Yeah, I I really don't like it too much, but I do have it on like my poppers mainly, but not my walking baits.
Yeah,
I only have like a lunker punker that has that.
I would feel the same in saying that it's definitely more common for poppers to have feathers on them than walking baits. But in my opinion, there's a time and a place. If you've got a walking bait that sits real ass down in the water. So, your follow-up question was, do you got any shower blows? And sure, I'll use the big size as an example. This thing is tail weighted like you wouldn't believe. So, like Matt was showing, this thing is going to sit like, 20% out of the water. It's
Yeah,
almost going to be all the way in the water. And when you've got a bait like that you might let sit for a while because there's fish that are inspecting it, and then you move the bait and this thing literally just walks in place, and then you kill it. That little pulsing action from a feathered treble can really come into play and be a handy little thing. So sure, on baits like the shower blows, yeah, I would say that's more appropriate, but it bridges the gap between walking bait and popper, right? When it comes to walking baits and using feather trebles, uh, I almost use it in the same situations that I do, uh, like jerk baits with bladed trebles. If it's a bait that is sized appropriately and can fit that uh, miscellaneous, that custom style hook on the middle, then I figure why not? If it's not going to drastically affect the action of the bait and the way that it was designed to work in the water, then sure. I think it's just one thing that gets their attention and causes a reaction bite that much more. And if they're going for that part of the bait, why not? That's where they're most prone to getting hooked as best as possible. So I think it's awkward to put a feather treble on the front hook hanger of a two hook bait. It is going to look a lot more natural to have it on the rear hook to look like the tail of a fish. But I think in some situations, using either a feather or a blade in that belly section of a bait uh, can be effective, especially if you've got fish that are short striking. So, not something that I do all that frequently, but I certainly have before. You see it on some swim baits, for example. I can think of like, the Jackal Gantarelle is one, and then the on the soft bait side, the Megabass Mag Slow. Um,
yeah,
it's essentially like a mag draft, but you get that feathered treble that attaches on the magnet on the belly of the bait. So, um, short answer is sometimes.
yes, same. Mainly, like I said, most of my poppers have feather trebles at pretty much like all of them, and but my walking baits, I really don't do that. Like I said, I only have like the lunker punker, and that has like a little tiny like feather on the belly, and really it's not much. It's a very small amount. It's really just to add a little bit of flash, really. And
Yeah,
then
exactly. Which, speaking of, in this same package from Midway USA, I guess I'm just going to work my way through that package tonight at the very least. They had owner tournament trailer trebles. These are ST36 that they have dressed up, and they charge $5 a pack for these. These were $2.20. Um, so in my eyes, I'm thinking, oh, this is about the same price that you'd pay for a standard owner hook on a price per hook basis. So what the heck? Why not at least see like how they do their feather trebles? This
yeah,
is a size 6 hook, and it's red with white feathers and tinsel in there, and then they use red thread. So it looks like this is it's well made, by all means. Like there's nothing wrong with this, but would I pay $2.50 per hook? No, I would not. So, I just figured, what the heck? There's a couple of downsized poppers that I could throw this on.
Yeah.
Although I kind of freak out because I don't throw red on a rear hook very frequently. So now I've got a red feathered hook. Where do I put this? Really? Maybe I just ought to have a bait with 2 red hooks and have this be on the rear.
Yeah.
I don't know, but at that deal, I couldn't really help it. And another hook that is a weird size, but also couldn't turn down the deal, were these ST41 2-aught hooks. These guys were like $4 for this 6-pack, and it retails for probably $8 or $9. These are heavy duty, big ass hooks. I don't know exactly where I'm going to use them. 2-aught, definitely swim bait territory.
Red.
That's a big feather. So take a look at this giant hook. The ST41 does have like
those are big.
a Benton EWG style bend on those hooks, but this is like I don't know, extra heavy gauge. I don't even know if I'm going to use these hooks. 2X strong, 2-aught treble hooks.
Yeah, it's the 2X part that makes them heavy.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So I didn't even quite realize what I was getting when I bought these. Wow. That'll take the right bait.
Yeah,
2-aught hooks are giant. I usually don't go larger than, I think I've got 1-aughts on like my,
size of 1-aught thing.
Slide Swimmer 175. I don't really go bigger than usually a 1 or a 1-aught, but that 2-aught, that's big, dude. So I've got 3 more hard baits that are all from River to Sea, and one is a bait that is, I don't know if I've got this exact one.
Yeah.
But this is a popper made by River to Sea. They make a couple walking baits and a couple of poppers, and they're all intriguing in their own way. This is the bubble popper in their bigger size. So they make a 65 size, which is like a 1/4 ounce size popper, and then this 88 or 85, 88, which is a big popper. Okay, so this is essentially a Megabass Pop Max made by River to Sea. I don't know that anybody else on the market is really doing a popper like this that has the open gills, the slits. So the water is actually passing through the face and then leaving a bubble trail behind the bait.
Sort of like the Pop Max.
It's exactly like the Pop Max. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know of anybody else besides River to Sea that has put something out with this same style design, using that cupped face to let water travel through and create a bubble that is different than really anything else out there. So I don't know how close this is in design otherwise to a Pop Max, or the way that it sits in the water. It's got a pretty flat belly to it, and this cupped face is fairly wide. But quality popper that I want to say is like 5/8, 3.5 inches. This is probably 5/8 of an ounce. It's pretty heavy. What in the world is that?
the Jackal riser bait. It has that mouth with the hole in it. It goes through with the bubbles.
Oh,
And it
yeah, that's
that
interesting.
one that jumps out the water.
Yeah, the riser bait that I have is not that style.
Yeah, it's a different one. That one is the one that jumps out. This one it creates just like a bubble trail, and then it has a prop on the back.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
So it's
commotion
almost like a
too.
chatterbait, but on top water, pretty much, and it creates a lot of commotion. But it's a very interesting bait. But you just got to work it very fast because it sinks. Like it's a really quick bait. You do not want to go slow with it.
Right.
But I guess you could. I mean, if you had like deep water, yeah. But if you're in shallow water, you don't want to do it too. Leave it too long. It'll sink pretty quickly, and you get snagged or something.
Right. Yeah, does not sound fun. So here's a comparison side by side. If I can fit them both into the picture well enough. So the face on the bubble popper is significantly wider, and I'm screwing up this angle big time. But the face on the bubble popper is bigger than on the Pop Max, like by a while.
Yeah, that is big.
A lot wider. And then the Pop Max is a little bit more curved of a body, and those gills are a lot more pronounced, whereas the bubble popper just has this flat belly.
Yeah.
I think it's going to sit a bit more horizontal, and it might be a slightly better blooping popper than the Pop Max, being a better walker, but I'm curious to see about that. And I don't know if I already had one of these baits or not, but the deal was too good. It was like $6. All of these baits, ordinarily are right in that like 10, 11, $12 price point where
Yeah.
I'm usually kind of on the fence about it. And then when you almost cut that in half, it's like, well, shoot. Compared to like the average thing that's put out by Strike King or Berkeley, like I think there's some things that are more compelling about that bait. And same thing happened with their square bill, which is called the Biggie. This is one that's been like halfway on my radar for a while, but probably only because Matt and Tim from Tactical Bassin always mention it as like one of their favorite square bill crankbaits, and I don't know exactly why. So that might be part of why this bait never quite came onto my radar as like a must-have square bill crankbait.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a square bill, right? But I think that's not what I expected. I expected a lot of commotion, and this is a really loud, deep one knocker sound, which is interesting. So maybe there's something to the sound. This is an abalone shad color that I really like that they make. This is the bigger size, which kind of surprised me when I just pulled this out of the package because it doesn't feel overly big. This is just barely bigger than like a 1.5 size square bill, but this is their Papa, as they call it. So Biggie Smalls and Biggie Papa. I see what they did there. A little tribute to Notorious B.I.G. But this Papa is 2 5/8 inches, so 67 millimeters, weighs a half ounce, dives 3 to 5 feet. You know what? It'll get tested out. I'll guarantee you that much. Will it get quite as much attention as the Jackal MC60 SR? Probably not. I don't know. Let's just be honest, right? In the same package, grabbing stuff that like kind of would be used in similar situations. Probably going to go to the bait that I know is a little bit more refined, that I have higher expectations for straight out of the gate. But that said, there's something about that sound profile that Biggie Papa just put out. The Smalls, on the other hand, is just a it does weigh 3/8 of an ounce, but this is a small bodied little guy that dives 2 to 4 feet.
Uh, uh-oh. Not good. Hopefully it'll start rebuffing some.
Are we back?
Yeah, it came back. Your side just froze for a second.
No, that was a good like 30 or 45 seconds. You say a second, but dude, I thought we might have been toast.
No, it wasn't that long.
That sure felt like a long time to me. So this Biggie Smalls, same color. This guy has no rattle in it. Oh, it was stuck. So this is a true knocker. And I don't know, it can get stuck. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't know why though. For some reason, I don't have that much luck with square bills or that many baits that or crankbait wise that make noise. I don't know why, but usually, you know, most of the baits I have are silent. And
Right.
But like I said, I don't know. I might need to try using them in certain situations, maybe more. But like I said, I just haven't for some reason. When I use a crankbait or a square reel that makes noise, I just don't get bit. And then as soon as I try switching that up and use a silent, I just end up getting bites. It's weird.
Yeah. I would agree that silent crankbaits just generally are going to perform better, but I don't know. All fish are different, and
Yeah.
if you consider like when a crankbait performs best,
I think it would be good for like dirty water
a
or
lot of those situations, like if you're in more aggressive weather scenarios or the water is colored, where like okay, a crankbait is a very feasible way to cover water and get reaction bites in this situation, right? Well,
yeah.
why wouldn't a rattling bait also help a little bit with that potentially? I mean, maybe not, but
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, like, water probably clarity or, if it's maybe a little bit cloudy out or something like that, or maybe, like I said, if the water is just a little bit more cloudier from like a rain that just happened, stuff like that, or maybe really windy out,
right.
it probably would help. So I just never probably thought of that. But yeah,
I only got one other thing in this entire package, besides all those hard baits and those frogs and those treble hooks. And this is just a jig trailer. I don't use chunk style trailers all that frequently. But these Z-Man bat wings are falling out of the clamshell. They're underrated. So I don't know what it is, but Elastec in this profile, the way that these legs are weighted, there's a lot of meat to these, and you get kind of that exact action that you would want and expect out of a chunk trailer, where you're going to get that kind of that lazy flap. That's not a kick,
yeah,
but just have that kind of that flow to it. And then they're also buoyant and they're pretty thick. So these things are super durable. And
Yeah,
This is
that part.
this is the bigger size at 3.5 inches. They also make them in a 2.75, but I find that with the length of these legs relative to the body, you really like they're made to be
Nose.
nose hooked, or I forget the right word, where you're not threading the chunk up onto the jig most of the time because you just don't have enough meat to cover more than like a 2/0 hook there,
Mhm.
right? So that's the other thing with these is that it can really bulk up a jig. But uh, I had tried these once or twice and was really impressed with just the way that they look in the water. Definitely a more like deep summertime type of deal where you want a slow moving presentation. A,
Yeah.
a bulky jig can really work. So, you know, they were on sale for $2 a pack. You get 5 in a pack. Normally they're like $4. Again, kind of just like, geez, no, I don't know why they're discounting some of this stuff 40 and 50% off, but I'll swipe it up while I can. So
And they'll last longer than some Zoom trailers and stuff like that. So you'll definitely get your money's worth.
well, right. The chunk trailer that I've used historically is the Strike King Rage chunk. And what I like about it is that essentially you're getting a Rage craw, but in a little bit more of a chunk
Profile.
profile.
Yeah.
The kickers on this thing are just slightly smaller than what you get on a standard Rage craw, and sure, you pay like the same amount for the same number of baits. So when you're buying these, it's specifically to be a jig trailer.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Rage chunk or the Rage craw, you're not going to be doing that. You're probably more frequently going to be throwing it as a swim jig or a wobble head or a flipping bait. But the body is the one thing that's different about these being flat. It's like it's been smashed. The Rage Craw itself is a pretty round bait, like I was showing with the Rage Menace grub. So what you get with this flatter, chunk is that you can skip it a little bit better, and I don't know, it's not going to bulk the bait up quite as much as if you use just a standard Rage Craw. So um, yeah, over the years I've used these Rage chunks, but otherwise I don't mess with chunks all that much. Uh, it's just an extra thing to carry around, right? I have this like separate box that are just jig trailers, and I almost never bring this out with me. Um, by the way, one of the coolest jig trailers out there in a long time. I wish they still made this bait, but
Chase baits.
no. This um
So a little.
I'll show you. They've got a couple of different baits that they used to make that are just super cool. The company's called Das Magic.
Uh, I never heard of them.
Yeah, it when I talked about these baits, it was like 3 years ago. So you wouldn't have heard about it on my channel most likely, but these baits are like, 10 years old and were discontinued. I don't know how long ago, a couple years, but they have a unique hollow body design to them. So, this is the craw, the Bass Magic Fighting Craw. They made it in this smaller size, and then this bigger size. And the first like half of an inch is totally solid and a really tough plastic, but the top half of the bait is completely hollow, and the craws are completely hollow. So this thing has a really cool buoyancy to it, where it doesn't go straight up and down, but has a pretty natural look and is super durable, with that nose being really solid. And they put the same type of design into some drop shot worms, which I really don't mention this bait because they're so hard to find. And I stocked up a while ago, and then I'm still scared to use them, but it's stupid. So this is the Bass Magic Shaky Tail worm, which is really a shaky head worm more than anything. But it's a hollow bodied swim bait turned into a worm. Okay. So Bass Magic was known for making hollow body swim baits, at the same point that Bastrix and all those companies were killing it, right? Before Strike King made the Shadalicious, and Yum made the Money Minnow. Bass Magic had one that was, pretty legit, but they made this shaky tail worm that is hollow in all but the very nose up to the eye. The entire worm is hollow, and then it's just got this little butt plug to let water out or in, and then it's got this spade tail. And it is magic on a shaky head, on a Nico rig, and on a drop shot. This is the bigger size. This is the 6-inch size. They make a 4.5, which is awesome on a drop shot. But yeah, it's one of those weird things that I found out about it right as it was too late, and they were really had gone out and were hard to find. And then I found one place and just bought a ton of it. But you can see just from the packaging how old this stuff is.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I was seeing how
now look at that. Randy Blockett. Can we see? Come on, focus for us, baby.
You can see it, but not.
Now, Guido Hibden has been dead for a long time now, but yeah, look at Randy.
That's funny.
Rick Klont. That's a good 15 years ago, dude. Dion Hibden. So yeah, the Hibden guys were Midwest hammers and bait guys that had some popular soft plastics. I even bought some of theirs. They had one of the OG cross style baits, which was back in the day was super impressive, but now it's Zoom makes a similar worm, but a craw, but nobody else in the world would actually make this bait these days. All right, and I'll finish this tangent in 1 second because these baits are kind of cool. So here's the Bass Magic swim bait. You can just see how legit this thing is.
Actually, yeah, it's pretty nice. That's pretty nice for a Lucky Strike brand.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, like quality baits, there's really no reason that this shouldn't have done really well. But they kind of just, that's the thing with Lucky Strike is that they don't do a great job of informing people and selling their stuff effectively, and I don't know if it's just that they're behind. Like,
maybe the name is not as known, so when people hear it, they're not like, "Oh my God, Lucky Strike."
Well, right. It's like back in the day, people would be like, "Oh, Jimmy Houston, okay, Lucky Strike." So it's good shit. But no, like that association's not there anymore. So here's the bait that this is called the Guido Bug, and it's a lot like the Zoom Critter Craw.
Yeah.
Or should I say the other way around? This bait right here was like the original soft plastic craw, like way back in the day.
And then you had the Jaw Tech.
And apparently people thought this was like the absolute shit, like just the best bait ever. And, it's like now in retrospect, no, it's not. But it's kind of a cool little piece of history,
Yeah.
I suppose. But I only bought those because they were cheap too. And at the time I was like, oh, shoot, I could probably sell a pack of those on eBay for $10. And meanwhile, I'm buying them for $1.50 or whatever. So I bought like 5 packs and I haven't touched them. Yeah, it's been like 4 years. Stupid logic, it works that way against us sometimes. So
just use some of them, get at least like some old school videos or something.
Right. Yeah, I don't have a lot of old school stuff, but I do have some.
But
so yeah, what else do you want to show us?
Yeah, I just got pretty much 2 more stuff left. Really, it's not much, but let me just turn my phone off. And so, but I pretty much just got restocked on just some mozzarella jigs, but just the new colors that came out. It's the red and black one that came out, and then also the bluegill color, which is pretty nice color too. It's like
nice.
Orange, brown, blue tail.
Are you just going 1/4 ounce in all those?
Yeah, that's all I use. So that's pretty much like all the weight size I pretty much like to use in my swim jigs specifically, but and then also the other jigs I got were the new one that I was telling you to check out, which is the RC flat back jig. It's from Radio Craft and Depths, but it's a pretty nice jig. It's a large,
long skirting material.
Yeah, it's a long skirt, and it has like a certain type of, it's like a silicone skirt, but it has like a different type of like feel to it. It's like weird, but it almost looks like it's 2 different materials, but it's not.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that they're, I guess the shape or size of it. I guess maybe it's like one's flat and one's a little bit more bulky, or maybe it's just the way it was tied. Not really sure, but it's definitely a nice little jig, and also the head shape on it is really interesting. It has like a nice like arrowed head, and on the corners it comes to like a point, so the bottom is like completely flat and flush, and then it allows it at least to go through cover a little bit better or grass. And hook is a pretty nice little hook on it. Has a nice size hook, and it's like almost like a O'Shaughnessy bend in a way, but like maybe I guess like a hybrid of that. But it's a nice hook on it. It's like maybe like a 2/0 hook, 3/0 maybe.
Yeah.
And for, like I said, heavier grass or cover wise, and the weed guard seems to be pretty stout on it. It's not that weak. So, but
Interesting.
and the weed guard is in a circle pattern. It's not like a square pattern like the other OSP jig I have. So it's just
Show us the head shape on that jig.
yeah, it's kind of hard to show, but
Hiding behind the dreadlocks of.
yeah, it's well tons.
Okay, so it's somewhere between like a standard Arky and that Matsuraba, like the way that it jumps up a little bit.
See how it has like those fins on the corner?
Kinda. Okay, yeah.
It's kind of hard to see, but it definitely has like a unique profile on the head. It's not. It's sort of like an Arky, but mixed with something else. It's here on the back of the package. It actually shows it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it has, like I said, it's like a very like pinpointed type of head on it, and like I said, it's meant to like cover through grass a little bit easier, and also just I think you can almost maybe even get away with somewhat not using a trailer, but in my opinion, probably use just like a smaller trailer on it, not too big, doesn't need to be like a ridiculous size. So it'll probably work pretty nice. But not to anyone in the chat, but
Yeah, what did you just say a second ago that G-Fon would have said? That's what she said.
I don't know.
Not too big, but not too small.
But yeah, and then there's just another color, but it's like a shrimp color. It has like a little bit of a pro blue flash to it, but it's a pretty nice color jig.
So that's a depth jig as well.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's just the RC flatback jig. It's just a hybrid heavy cover weed swimming type jig. It's pretty much like a swimming grass cover jig. Pretty much is what it does. That's pretty much like how most depth jigs are anyway. They're like hybrid jigs. Like the Matsuraba is like a swimming wood jig. This is pretty much just like a swimming grass heavy cover jig that allows you to just use it in heavy cover, but also, you know, get also a little bit of probably a swimming action, I'm assuming. So,
Right.
So I just got to test it out. I have not tested it out, so I'll definitely see what it does. But I'm definitely going to see what's the difference between this one and that OSP one that's a little bit sort of like the same kind of concept, but a little bit different type of skirt. It has like a rubber skirt on it.
Yeah.
So this one here is the strong jig. It's this one here, the 0-1 strong. It's just pretty much like a rubber skirt, but it has more of like a rounded head to it. So this one seems like it's more like if you're like punching and sort of like things like that. And also it's very aerodynamic in the head, and you can tell it's like maybe more for like maybe like wood or something like that. And the weed guard is pretty actually stiff. Actually, it's not that bad. But the actual weed guard itself, the way that it's placed inside the head is different. It's not a round spot on there. It's like literally on there where the weed guard goes into. It's actually square. So the weed guards are laid like in concession to behind each other instead of just being a circle like this one is. It's pretty much a circle. And so that allows the weed guards to have a little bit more pretty much stiffness without having to pretty much have like a more harder weed guard in it, and then also allow for when the weed guard actually presses, the weed guard will fan out a little bit easier than when it does with the round guard. So it just also helps for penetration and also to help with keeping the weed guard stiffer with actually using smaller guard material. That's what I saw on what it said, but
Nice.
I gotta test that out. But the only thing I don't like on that the OSP one is that the hook is pretty small, and but it's a stout hook. It's pretty thick. It's not thin. This one's pretty thin on here compared to.
Is that more common in Japan that they would, throw a 2-aught or a 3-aught hook in a jig as opposed to here in the U.S. we're throwing 4 and 5/0 hooks on jigs like left and right.
Yeah, it seems like that's what I've been noticing is that a lot of them are a lot smaller, but there is some that are bigger, but usually there's between 2 or 3/0, or sometimes even smaller mattering. But
Yeah.
the Raba is not that big neither. It's really not that big.
Yeah.
But they're mainly like 3 to 4 inches.
To know on the RC flatback jig, are you gonna trim that skirt at all or no?
Probably just maybe a little bit on this one. I already trimmed on this one a little bit. It was a lot longer than that, and I trimmed that one down. So probably trim this one back just a little bit, maybe just like a finger's amount or a little bit more, maybe 2 fingers.
Right.
But not too much because that's the whole point of the jig. But like I said, I'm not going to be using a very big, sort of soft plastic with it. I'll probably either try a grub on it or something like that because I don't really want to. You're really not going to see much of the bait with all that skirt, in my opinion. And where you're throwing this to is not going to be seen that much. It's more or less like the jig is creating that wide, big profile for you. So I think that pretty much helps on its own. And I think he froze. Now you're back. You're back.
Apparently. How long did that happen?
Nah, it was not that long. It was like a couple seconds.
Yeah, you said that last time.
It is. It
It
is.
was about 15, 20. All right.
I think it's just on your end. It looks like slow.
Yeah, no, that was bad for a second.
Yeah, to do live shrimp would definitely work. I do have the Beck and Crawl and a couple other trailers for, like I said.
Yeah, why don't you I'll put you on solo for a second while I pee and you talk about maybe a couple of plastics that you intend to use as trailers for those jigs that you just got. Like first of all, on the the RC flatback, are you gonna put a soft plastic trailer or are you gonna run that naked? And then for the other one or for both of them, what kind of trailers are you using? Since that's not your
Well,
ever so loved Matsuraba that you could just throw a power wiggler on, right? Like
yeah,
you
nah.
have to think about it.
Yeah, I actually, there's a couple of things I actually ended up getting to. The reason why I got this color skirt, the shrimp color one with the pro blue in it, was because it matched this Pro One's depth bait that I have. But it has like you can kind of see that with the flash. It has that pro blue in it, but it's got like this sheen to it. But that's like a shrimp color. There, you can kind of see it there when you hold it. But I ended up getting these. I'm not gonna rig them because I'm not gonna ruin them. But it's these ones right here. Oh, let me show the package pretty much. It's this color right here. It's the Death Hatter shad. And pretty much matches pretty much spot on with it. And it pretty much comes out the back like perfectly. So literally it's perfect. So it'll match really well with that. And it has this big flake in it, so it's like a pink rose champagne sort of color with these big flakes in it, holographic flake. So it's just like a little stiff paddle tail worm sort of. But that one I would probably use for that. And then I have pretty much these here, but these are pretty small, so I probably will not use these, which is those 3.5 inch size. was thinking about using a pinker worm too. I guess I could use these too. I was thinking about using these two as well, which are like a worm. What is a worm from depths, but they're also meant to be, you can use them on jigs. But it's a rebound stick. It's a big, sort of like has a very big bulbous tail that pretty much has a lot of weight to it. It's very heavy, but you can use that on the back of pretty much the same color jig as well. You have that on there on the front.
Interesting.
And that would be hanging off, and then it would just have that floating behind it. But like I said, it does look, this bait does look good on the jig, because you can look up the videos that they have online that pretty much show it on a jig, on a regular Texas rig and stuff like that, and it looks pretty good. But like I said, I also showed that also I would use these here, which are like a little tiny death header shad on that as well, on the back of that pinkish sort of pro blue shrimp color.
Yeah.
And but the other color, I still haven't really figured out what I'm going to do for that one color wise to match with it. But like I said, I do have a black grub that I would put with it, which I do have here. I just gotta get to it. I don't even know where I have them. Yeah, they're not here.
That's all good, dude.
Yeah, I have them somewhere. They're damn, it's a grub, a certain size grub I have. There's so many damn soft plastics. Yeah, they're not here.
Chicken Fried Steak wants to know what that orange fishing rod is right next to you.
Which one?
The orange fishing rod right there.
It's not orange, it's red, but it's the Mock Smash that I had won from the Burley Fishing Show.
Have you used it yet?
Nah, not yet. I still gotta pretty much get it. I just gotta spool it up. But I could use the rod. I just haven't used it yet. Yeah. I do want to try it though, see how it does. It seems like it's a pretty decent rod. It's a little softer than, you know, my other rods, but definitely feels like it will work for a jig or a swim jig pretty well, or like a small swim bait.
Yep.
So, and the reel is decent.
So yeah, I think maybe I'll save both Tackle Warehouse and Discount Tackle for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, it's a lot of unboxing to do, and we've already been on for an hour and 38 minutes, which is awesome. You know, it's crazy how it feels like the last handful of streams have gone pretty quickly. And, you know, I feel like a Tackle Warehouse order could take me an hour. Whereas the Discount Tackle stuff, there's only like 4 things in there. A couple of which are swim baits, so that'll be fun to talk about. I'd love your input on them. There's even 2 in the Tackle Warehouse package, but they're all newer swim baits to me, at least in one regard or another. One of these is just a larger size of a bait that I already like, but the other ones are new to me. And so if you've got perspective on them, let me know tomorrow. But I'll cover all of that stuff tomorrow. And if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about now, we can. There's not a rush to get out of here, but you know, theoretically, we both talked about a fair amount of stuff that is new to us, and
yeah,
it's gone fairly well. Is there anything else that you had that you like wanted to show or talk about, or that you have used recently?
No, not really. Just I pretty much talking about the stuff that I used really this week that I caught like fish on really. I did, like I said, what I did notice is that when I was fishing with this bait, that I had to pretty much change the hooks out on it because, or the rear hook, because when the first time I was using it, when I first started getting a bunch of bites on it, I had caught one fish, but I had lost two other ones, and one was on it, and it threw the bait completely off, and I had set the hook pretty hard, and I was wondering how the hell that fish could have came off.
Right.
And, but literally, so what I did was I just put the he had put on the thing that he had sent to me to put a 2 and a 3 on the hook, but I didn't have a 3, so
Yeah.
I put a 4 there, and then put I think it was a 4 and a 4, but they were like long shank hooks, and it wasn't enough, and so I had put a number 2 on the back, and then a number 4 on the front, and that seemed like what helped a lot, and I was able to get those fish on that other fish better, and it actually pinned them on the to the hook, and actually
Were they
worked.
eating that back hook then?
Yeah, well, they're actually getting the whole pretty much bait in their mouth, and
Right.
so it's pretty easy for them to get in their whole mouth. Really, that's why it's getting the hook rash on the top of the head and the front.
Right.
They're pretty much getting that whole bait in their mouth, and then I'm pretty much setting the hook, and then it grabs them like that. So,
Sure.
but some have came from the bottom, and those ones I noticed have came off easier. But when the ones that seem like they had it in their mouth were the ones that actually got hooked. So,
Yep.
but overall, I think that'll help, and I think I need to get a number 3 hook for the front so I can put that there. But I was just scared that it was going to get snagged on something, and it did get snagged on something, but I was able to get it out with just stabbing with the rod. But I got a lure retriever coming, an extendable one. So hopefully that'll help, for at least anything that's close by for me,
Yeah.
know. But
Well, yeah. Keep us posted about that because I've probably donated more than I should have in the way of lures to the bodies of water that I fish.
yeah,
It's just part of the deal, right? It's like if you're not losing lures, you're not putting them where they should be. But it's also a little annoying if you lose $50 to $100 a day in
yeah,
lures. Like that adds up really fast and is not cool. So it sucks to be a bank fisherman and get hung up and just know that like you're done. Uh,
yeah,
that bait is gone unless somehow it's like barely got the top of a log. And while
yeah.
you're trying to break it off, it just like
Somehow bends it out enough.
loose and starts swimming towards you. And you're like, no way. Like that's amazing. But
Yeah,
but usually you just kind of come to terms with it when you know you're snagged up.
back.
It's not coming, right? You've done everything. You're popping it. You're going around to the other side. Nothing.
Yeah.
It's in there. You're like, oh man. So then you cut your losses. You crank down that drag and you just pull it
But
and break that thing off. But wouldn't it be nice if, say, in half of those situations, you could use a lure retriever and get back your bait? I mean, that would pay for itself in less than a season, right? I'm sure that there's a lot of places where there's too much distance between you and the bait.
yeah,
The lure retriever is going to lose momentum. It's not going to do its job, and it's going to just get trapped too, or do nothing at all. So, then all of a sudden you're out a lure retriever, right? It's like, then what do you do? So, I'm sure there's a tipping point, a certain angle. And I know that some guys make lure retrievers out of like really heavy, like lead weights, right? Like
yeah.
get
I've done that before.
you can get sinkers that guys would use that are like 3 ounces, right? And use something like that. Uh, so I've thought about it, but haven't really gone down that road.
They do work for like crankbaits and stuff, but like I said, that's why I think the pole is really the best really way to do it. Because like some of the poles that you can get, they go up to like 16, 18 feet. And then someone actually, mentioned that pretty much like a fruit picking thing that you can get from like the Home Depot. It's like a long extending pole, and it has obviously like a little extending like claw at the end.
Sure.
And it's similar actually to this thing that in Japan they make, and it's actually what I wanted to get, and it's meant for like swim baits, but it's a extendable, literally aluminum pole that they make, and it's meant for like pulling the baits out, and it's a pretty cool little device, and it works. But like I said, it has to be within 16 to 18 feet. So if anything more than that, you're done. But hey, sometimes a lot of the times the baits that I lose are like that close sometimes, and kind of sucks. Like that epic shad from Eric, I probably would have got that back if I would have had that.
Right.
But like you said, sometimes when you're on that further end of your cast and you end up just reeling in a couple times and then boom, you just snag. You're like, oh, it's over.
That's not coming back.
Yeah. And that happened to me with that spinnerbait, man. I literally that Beeble spinnerbait, and then I lost my Matza robber jig, and then something else. I forget what the hell it was, but literally those two I lost like a couple minutes apart from each other, and I was pissed. And it was near the same area too, and I was like, damn it.
Yep. Never a great feeling.
Yeah. And then like you don't see
Because,
nothing either.
yeah, when that pike just with that 6-inch mag draft, like I knew he was about to eat it. And I felt that tension, and I swung, and it just came clean off. I mean, it's like I knew it as it was happening or before it was happening. I could feel the bite coming. I felt the bite, and I felt just the clean bite. There was nothing left there. Um, and the jackhammer that I lost that day was completely my fault. Uh, there were tons of crawdad that were like 4 to 6 inches in size, like giants. And then a bunch of smaller ones. But there were just like the bank was littered with crawdads that day. So and then I start throwing crankbaits. I start throwing, chatterbaits and jigs and things like that to try and because usually swim baits work well there in catching bass and pike. But I started throwing the fire craw jackhammer, thinking, okay, this might stand out a little bit and represent one of these bigger crawdads. And I don't know, it was probably less than 5 minutes in that I started getting all fancy with my retrieves as I was getting closer to the bank, dragging and hopping. And like I made it so that thing just hopped right into a crevice and was never coming back. Sometimes
I hate that.
sometimes you got to be aware of what you're doing, especially when throwing a jig, or around situations like that. Like I've done that with a Ned rig like 100 times. It's like I know that there's enough rock there.
Yeah.
This is not just a sand bottom. And then I find myself dragging it, waiting until I feel a little tension, and then kind of hop it up over.
Yeah, you can feel it.
You're asking for it at that point when you want it to bump something, and then you just expect every time that you're just going to cleanly pop it over. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Roll
you're going
right.
to get hung on that like 25 to 50% of the time.
Yeah.
And then what you actually want to have happen might happen a little more than half the time.
I think it's like every like 16 or 20 casts, you're like risking probably, getting it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I've had that happen more recently just because I feel like I'm using the right thing, but just need that right action out of the bait to get the fish to react. So I'm just playing with fire and being a little bit more dangerous, but I think that's important in a lot of situations to be able to like not only get bit but
Yeah.
get the right fish to bite. You know,
That I had some weird stuff happen to me this week too. I forgot to tell you though about that too. Is that I was literally cranking that Z1 crank and literally just cranked in the same spot I always usually fish, and all of a sudden I just feel like a fish hit my bait, and I just set the hook and I'm like reeling it in, and then all of a sudden I just feels weird, like it feels like something is not right. It feels like drag, but it feels like there's still something on there. At first I just thought I got like snagged, but then I started feeling it was moving away. So I started keep reeling and reeling, and all of a sudden as I'm getting my crankbait out the water, I see my crankbait out the water, and I'm like, there's no fish on it. Why is this thing moving?
you catch someone else's line.
Dude, it was on a braid around the hook of my crankbait, like wrapped into like a damn knot. It was the weirdest thing ever. And then on the end of that damn braid was a fish hooked onto an EWG in its damn throat. And I felt so
No.
bad. And I was like, dude, damn. I was like, what an asshole, dude.
Wait, so you caught that fish, but
Yeah.
not with the hook that was in its mouth?
Dude, with like 10 feet of braid at the end. I'm like, dude, what the hell? Who the hell cuts 10 feet off the damn hook? I was like, you couldn't just cut the hook at the line at the hook.
Wait, so you caught a fish by catching someone else's braid?
Yeah. I don't
Wow.
even know where the fish was at or like how that happened, or maybe
Oh, that poor fish has been on a leash for God knows how long.
yeah, man. And I felt bad, dude. I try to, help him a little bit, but the hook was way too far. So what I did was just cut the plastic fluke that was in his mouth. It was a Guggen plastic too. And I just cut the damn plastic, as much as I could, and took it out so it's not obstructing his throat as much, and just left the hook there and cut it as far, pretty much to the, eyelet, the braid, so he's not, stuck or gets stuck on anything, and hopefully that corrodes out or something and comes out. But
Interesting.
I try to help him as much as I could, but it was the weirdest thing. I never ever had that happen in my life. Like,
No, I've never caught a fish on someone else's line. You know, it's like as you were telling the story, I thought, oh yeah, I've had that happen a lot where you either catch somebody else's line, which they snagged on something far out,
yeah,
they snapped off, and the line got wrapped around something, so it's tight. So
yeah,
you set and you feel that tension, it feels fishy. You set and you're fighting nothing, right?
yeah.
It's line sitting there. Eventually you realize, and as you start pulling, it like,
Starts
you
moving.
know, yeah, it starts coming, and then you pull in just this pile of line,
Yeah,
uh, which is super annoying, but also a little satisfying at the same time. Like,
that is.
okay, so someone was an asshole, or at least I want to call them that. You know, maybe it's not true. Like they just got hung up and they broke off, and it broke close to the rod instead of at the bait, whatever. Uh, but catching someone else's line is like you assume that there was an irresponsible angler out there who made a mess and caused that to happen to you. Uh, but on the flip side, it's like it feels kind of good to remove
Yeah, the snag out.
a third of a spool of line that's just been sitting in the water for God knows how long.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now we've got
That's
that.
what happened to me like earlier this spring.
Yeah, but I've had it happen multiple times where I've been in the same spot, and I get that feeling after I bring up a big pile of line, and then it happens to me again 5 minutes later, and
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this spot must be so overfished or fished by the same idiot
Yeah.
who didn't learn their lesson and did it
That's what
twice.
happened to me, man. I had to like literally waste like $100 worth of lures to like either pull out those damn snags that were there, or either snag my bait there and then figure out that not to throw my stuff there. So it was weird. But I've had that same thing where I literally pulled out like clumps of catfish line, like 40, 50-pound catfish line. And, or like I said, the bait either gets stuck there and I'm like, dude, that's not a damn log, because
Right.
it just doesn't feel like that. And you end up breaking or bending out your snap or something like that. So
Hey, Riley makes a good point, and I do wonder a little bit. Do you think, I could almost see someone who's not a newbie thinking this way if, say, they've got a bait caster that's spooled up with braid, they get hung up, and they're pulling on that thing, and all of a sudden they notice, like, oh, the braid is digging into the spool. Like, this is a future backlash that I'm creating right now. Fuck. And so they stop, right? And you're in a predicament like, okay, I need to break this lure off, but the harder I pull, the more the line is going to dig into the spool. So do you think people ever intentionally cut their line like at the rod as opposed to trying to break it off at the bait?
I see that a lot, where a lot of the catfish guys or the guys that are like, really just fishing for like with worms and stuff like that or bait, they really just they'll take the rod and pull it as hard as they can and then take it and literally just cut it like that, boom. And really then just let the rest of that line go out.
Right.
Maybe just grabbing it with their hand or just take a stick and wrap it around the stick and then just pull, But they don't do that really. I don't see that, They mainly cut it and let the line go. And then
Interesting. Yeah. Now I think that there probably are more people that do that, and I didn't think about that until now. But that I guess further explains it. Either people just not being in the know or thinking that they're doing themselves a favor by cutting the line closer to the rod. But that's annoying for sure.
Yeah, because like I said, when I usually either get snagged on something or like the line, and if I bring it back, it's usually like, 30, 40 feet of line sometimes. And I don't see that any way of that happening unless them actually just cutting it and, letting it go versus, trying to break it at the weight or at the lure and, trying to get back as much as possible. So,
Yeah. Daniel says he lost a fish recently because of something like that. Caught a fish, and as he was fighting it swam into some tangled line and managed to get off. That's pretty annoying. Riley says she had a trolling motor completely destroyed because of line that was in the water. That's
it's also not, good for animals or, any sort of things in the environment.
right. No, I always have like a certain amount of pride. Like I'm proud when at the end of a fishing session I'm going to find a trash can and I've got like a spool or two full of line that I'm throwing away. Like that feels good. But it's never my priority to go find excess line, right?
Yeah.
But when you find a couple of snags like that, or you find a spot where someone had been fishing and was just straight up irresponsible and left a bunch of leftover line, either way, like I love being able to throw away a bunch of extra line.
Yeah, I do the same thing. If I see it, if it's like there in front of me, or like if it's getting in my way or something like that, I'll grab it. Or if I just see it, like, something that looks like it might cause issues, or an animal might get stuck in it, I'll grab it.
Yeah.
And also, I also did fish a little bit this week too. The hyper shad that I have.
Ooh.
It's a little blank from Swim Bait Garage, and like I said, this bait was pretty good, and it sinks very, very slow since it's not painted. So I just have that little tiny weight, and it doesn't sink any more fast. It really just sinks like a foot every like 6-7 seconds. And like I said, I got a bite off of it, but the fish came off of it. But it glides super nice. Like, it literally has a very good, short glide to it, but it almost glides in place. But you can control the glide on the speed pretty much. You pretty much go kind of slow, and it'll cause the bait to glide out wide. And if you just give it twitches, it'll just twitch almost in like place. And it does pretty much almost sort of like the Chad shad does, similar to that, but in a just different, like, little bit different profile. That's just a little bit more narrow.
Yeah.
The other
Okay.
cash has a little bit more wider profile. This one's a little bit thinner. And this is also not that big. It's like a 7-inch bait. So it's really
Who
not.
makes that?
It's called Swim Bait Garage. This is called the Hyper Shad. He makes a couple different ones. He makes the 7-inch, 8-inch, and then also a 3-piece version. But
Okay.
but yeah, I had got on them when they were still a little bit cheaper, but now he raised the price a little bit. But they're like 120 for the blank, and a painted one is like 140 or 150 or something like that. So, but they're a pretty nice bait. The blank wise, I think it's worth getting the blank wise.
Yeah.
This the blank. Like I said, I got 2 bites on it. The one both came off, but it just on that alone, I think it's pretty decent. But I'm gonna definitely try it out some more. I might actually increase the hook size because they seem kind of small, and since it's floating, a pretty good amount and not sinking too fast, I think a little bit bigger hooks, wouldn't be too bad. It wouldn't impact that too much. So,
Sure.
because they're
I
pretty.
agree with that. John, I have not picked up the Megabass Sleeper Gill yet. They look interesting for sure.
Yeah,
But
I actually won some of those today. So
what's that?
I actually won some of those on the Fishing with Gramps.
Really?
Yeah, so hopefully I can get to test those out and see how they do.
Nice. Congrats on that. Yeah, I know that they've been hard to get your hands on this first like batch or two
Yeah,
that have made their way to retailers. So uh, and maybe it's just been one batch,
yeah,
really.
that's
Ever,
how it's gonna be.
the hookup had them, Tackle Warehouse had them, a handful of places had them, um, and they went out almost immediately. So that's the thing. Is like the paint jobs are better on them than they are on the Dark Sleeper,
Yeah,
but that's because it's a bluegill, and
a little
the
bit
paint
bigger of
jobs look pretty bluegilly. Um, Whereas like the Dark Sleeper is meant to be
a
a
goby.
little bit of whatever. Is it a goby? Is it a crawdad? Is it a
Yeah,
bait fish? Is it maybe a little bit of any of those?
to be honest.
Yeah, it's kind of whatever. Um, and so yeah, hopefully the sleeper gill looks like a gill. The
Yeah,
sleeper craw looks like a craw when those come out. But it looks good. As I said last week in this Tackle Warehouse package that I'm going to open tomorrow, there's one of the Savage Gear
the structure. Yeah,
structure gill, which is their dark sleeper
pretty much.
slash sleeper gill. It's more of a dark sleeper, I think,
Yeah,
in terms of design. More of that long than that tall profile. Probably has a little less kick. The sleeper gill looks cool because it's got a lot of body, and then it like narrows way down to the tail. So I think it's going to have a better kicking action and a little bit more realistic of like a bluegill profile than anything that you get out of the dark sleeper. So as a straight swim bait, I think it probably will do well. As a bed fishing bluegill bait, I think it'll do well. So is it worth having? Probably. And for someone like me, probably more appropriate to have than the dark sleeper, um, which I have been using a little bit.
Had much luck on the dark sleeper, really. Surprisingly, I just haven't had really that best of luck with them. Not sure why. When I try to use them like how they say they are, like use them like a jig and use them maybe on more like on bottom contact, stuff like that. But I don't know. I just never really got bites like that with it. But you would think you would, but I don't know. For me, I just didn't. So hopefully the sleeper gill is a little different. But
Right. I mean, maybe you'll fish it a little bit differently than you would with the dark sleeper. I don't know, but that's something for us to kind of all figure out. Like I've had mixed results on the dark sleeper. I've probably caught a dozen or 15 fish on them, but I probably bought like 8 of them. So, on the average, I've caught 1 or 2
I've
per
also
bait. Like I haven't ever just had one that I've fished and just totally trashed the bait before losing it. Like I've lost a handful of them because that lead guard system is not super effective.
like, and I've used this one a lot, and literally it's like barely bitten. Like,
Yep.
the front is like messed up. It got ripped. I fixed it with like Mendit, but
Right.
it just, like I said, I haven't got really bit on it, and I
Yeah.
even
This
modification.
this bigger size, I like more. Right. This is the 3.75 inch,
Yeah, it's
but this thing is like an ounce. Um, this is a really
heavy.
significant bait. So if you're wanting to work it like a swim bait, it's going to be hard to maintain the depth. You're going to have to move this thing pretty quickly for it to not want to swim down and ride lower in the water column on you. And so that's a hang up that I have with this style of bait is that you can't really get like a 1/4 ounce or a 3/8
In a bigger.
size in any of these baits, with the way that they have to weight them up toward the nose to have them rest perfectly like that every time. It's weighted really low in the bait, and they have to put a pretty significant amount of weight in the bait. So, yeah, I would love to see a bigger sized.
Yeah, I'm wondering how those sleeper gill fall. Like, does it fall straight down, or does it nosedive? That's what I'm.
Right. It looks like, and I would hope that maybe it has like a swim down instead
Yeah,
of just like a straight vertical fall, that it might actually swim down and then somehow rest.
yeah,
But that seems somewhat complicated for it
yeah,
to have, both of those abilities, for it to nose down, swim down, and then right itself and rest standing up. Like I don't know. I haven't held them or seen
right.
them
It falls,
enough to know.
like sort of like come down like that. Maybe rest slowly
Right.
down. And
Maybe it's not quite as stable as the dark sleeper in just being this perfectly flat deal, because it's that taller profile. It feels like it would be more prone when resting to
yeah,
just having current or whatever just kind of roll it over, right? So maybe as you drag it, it drags kind of nose down in the bed or wherever you have this thing, versus if you pop it and start swimming it, it will have that much more tail kick than the dark sleeper does. The tail looks like it's twice as big on it.
yeah. That's the thing I like too about it.
So looks like a good bait, but good question. Don't know, John. All right, guys, we're 2 hours and 8 minutes in. Let's call it good right there, right now, and plan to be back on in 22 hours. I've got 2 packages to open tomorrow night. I will definitely be on, and then I leave town on Monday for the week, up until Father's Day. So I don't know if I'll be on really much of next week, because I come home Saturday night. Sunday is Father's Day. So I'll be on tomorrow night, and then it'll be, a week and a half, maybe pushing 2 weeks before we see each other. So, guys, hit that thumbs up button real quick. I did put in the description of this video a link to Matt. I don't know if I did it properly, but go check out Matt's channel, SouthJerseyFisherman028 on YouTube. Subscribe and look out for future content. Guys, come back tomorrow night. Let's hang out, do another unboxing, and enjoy your Saturday tomorrow. Thanks for coming on, Matt.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Enjoy your weekend, guys.